Most people think the absolute worst thing you can take onto a stage is fear, that a shaking hand or a tight chest is a glaring sign of weakness that you have to completely eradicate before you ever open your mouth. But what if that fear is actually biological proof of your power? Why is it that the very thing that makes you want to run for the exits is the exact fuel required to captivate a room? To figure out why this contradiction exists, we need to go back to 1915 to a foundational text called The Art of Public Speaking, written by Dale Carnegie and J. Berg Esenwein. This book completely changed the course of oratory. See, before they wrote this, speech instruction was basically a rigid checklist of 19th century elocution tricks, exactly how to stand, when to point your finger, and how loud to project. But Carnegie and Esenwein threw all of that out in favor of psychological realism. They made it clear right from the jump that relying on mechanical tricks, rehearsed pauses, or memorized gestures is a massive trap. If you do that, you aren't really communicating. You're just, as they put it, dressing a wooden image in the clothes of a man. It's a facade, a machine-like performance completely missing the internal life that actually moves human beings to action. And this is where their brilliant reframe of anxiety comes in. They argued that stage fright isn't a character flaw, it's biological wealth. To prove it, they compared the world-famous highly sensitive racehorse Dan Patch to your average numb draft horse pulling a cart. Now that draft horse, it doesn't feel much nervous tension, but it also has absolutely zero capacity for greatness. Dan Patch, on the other hand, was incredibly high-strung and susceptible to suffering, but that extreme sensitivity is exactly what made him so fast. A higher capacity for feeling literally equals a higher capacity for impact. But there's a catch, which they call the vicious circle. It's a brutal paradox that traps almost every aspiring speaker. You have to speak to learn how to speak, but the sheer terror of getting it wrong, combined with overthinking all those mechanical how-to rules, completely paralyzes the beginner before they ever step foot on a platform. So how do you break out of it? Well, they used this great analogy of the waterless bathing suit. You cannot learn to swim by putting on a waterproof suit and practicing strokes on dry land. You have to get in the water. You have to take the plunge, step up, and accept that you are going to be half scared to death, because experience is the absolute best teacher. You break the vicious circle by simply getting wet. Once you're actually in the water, though, you have to conquer the ultimate vocal pitfall, monotony. Carnegie and Esenwein didn't just see a flat delivery as a technical mistake.
They called it a sin of omission, a real poverty of power. Think of a monotonous voice as solitary confinement for the listener's brain. Our minds are biologically hardwired to completely revolt against a flat, unchanging delivery, because nature itself is never perfectly uniform. To break out of that solitary confinement, you have to master the topography of language. Think of your sentences as having mountain peak words and stream bed words. If you emphasize every single word equally, you end up emphasizing nothing. A great speaker intentionally submerges the unimportant stream bed words, the connective tissue, so that the vital, essential ideas, the mountain peaks, stand out in bold relief. Human attention is entirely driven by contrast. Here's a concrete action you can try for your very next presentation called the destiny drill. Take a phrase like, "Destiny is choice, not chance." Practice wildly varying your pitch and intensity between the words choice and chance. Pitch is the running commentary of your emotions. By actively practicing this contrast, you're training yourself to signal the listener's brain exactly when a new, important idea drops. And that idea of contrast applies beautifully to tempo, too. If you speak at a constant, unvarying rate, even if you're talking really fast and energetically, the audience's brain is eventually going to tune you out. It's exactly like how a city dweller can sleep completely soundly right next to the deafening, constant roar of a train track. To keep a brain awake, your speed has to fluctuate to match the specific gravity of your thought. For example, the authors point to a historical editorial about a mob's choice using the heavy line, "Release unto us Barabbas." To deliver that properly, you need a slow, weighted, pulling tempo to convey the solemn, crushing gravity of that choice. That's a stark contrast to the lightning speed you'd use for an action-packed story. It's like the immense solemnity of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. The pacing physically demonstrates the weight of the words. But sometimes the most powerful movement of sound is no sound at all. The novelist Wilkie Collins had a famous formula for suspense. He said, "Make them laugh, make them weep, make them wait." That is the raw eloquence of silence. A pause acts like a magnifying glass, focusing your mental energy while creating a psychological suspense that makes the audience absolutely desperate for your next word. Now here is the ultimate realization, the real turn in this whole philosophy. All of these vocal mechanics we just covered, the pitch, the tempo, the perfectly timed pause, they are completely useless without one underlying reality, the issuance of the man himself. Effective public speaking isn't a parlor trick. It is the organic external manifestation of an intense internal character. The rules are helpful, sure, but it is the inner fire of the speaker that actually creates true oratory. So how do you actually cultivate that internal fire while simultaneously battling your biological fear? You use what they call the blacksmith's principle. When a blacksmith is shoeing a horse, they'll sometimes twist a rope around the horse's nose to distract it from the pain. For you, as a speaker, intense concentration on the truth of your message is that distraction. You have to focus so deeply on the urgency of what you are saying that there is literally no mental room left over to feel self-conscious. And when you possess that level of internal conviction, it naturally dictates forceful word choices. You won't even have to fake it. A truly convicted speaker doesn't hide behind bloated academic Latin words. Instead of militate, they say war against. Instead of terminate, they say end. You naturally favor sharp, short, punchy Saxon words over complex phrasing because you want to deliver a genuine physical hit to the audience. That rhetorical force is simply the final physical result of a deep spiritual cause. It's a strict four-step chain. It starts entirely with conviction, your unwavering belief in the subject. That belief then generates emotional tension. That tension hardens into iron resolve. And finally, it erupts outward as propulsion. You absolutely cannot manufacture that external physical force if you skip those first three internal steps. So what does this all mean for you? What's the fundamental shift you need the next time you step up to speak? You have to subordinate your ego to the message. Self-consciousness is exactly that, being way too conscious of yourself. You have to stop viewing yourself as an exhibit on display, just standing there hoping the audience claps for you. Instead, you have to act strictly as a messenger, delivering a vital truth that the room desperately needs to hear.
All technical rules are merely the wood of the orator's craft. Without the fire of the man within, those rules are useless. To be a great speaker, one must first build a self worth hearing. Public speaking is the issuance of the self. Master the man within, and the voice will follow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.